Hi, welcome to the Scoot on the Air YouTube channel. And I want to especially welcome those of you who are brand new subscribers. Now, you can go back and look on this YouTube channel and, some interesting interviews with John Lodge of the Moody Blues, with Amanda Shaw. And really, this is, some of this is really about the truth behind the microphone, where I get a chance to share with you some of the shit that goes on in radio and behind the scenes. And it's a great extension of my show on WWL Radio in New Orleans. And it also gives me a chance to, go into a little bit more detail about some things that we can't go into detail with on the air. So anyway, thank you for being a new subscriber. We'll give you an alert every time we do something live, and you can check it out live, or you can come back and watch it when you can. I'm going to share a few pictures with you in this episode. This is episode 4 of 50 years. Still crazy after 50 years. This is me with Rhonda Shear, who was the actress who did the movie wraparounds on the USA Network, Up All Night. Remember the girl that used to be on in lingerie, Up All Night? Yeah, it's Rhonda Shear. Well, that's her. We dated briefly and had a great time. Really nice person. Still had a lot of great respect for each other. This was emceeing a March of Dimes event in New Orleans. And you can see that we both had our fair of hair. And Rhonda's dress looks a little on the short side. Anyway, so I'll share a few more pictures coming up. So I want to remind you that tomorrow night, Saturday night, July 17th, 80s night at Generations Hall. Don't you love these graphics? I'm going to get this stuff, as this YouTube channel builds, I'm going to get graphics. I'm going to get some stuff, and we're going to make this a lot better. But this is the best I can do in the meantime, okay? So 80s night, Generations Hall in New Orleans tomorrow night. And look, you can dress 80s, or you can just come as you are. Now, there are tickets, advanced tickets on sale. I think they're $10. And you can go to this website, themetronola.com, and get tickets, themetronola.com. But you can also just, show up. I mean, you can show up tomorrow night. Look, it's going to be fun. It's going to be this is going to be the biggest 80s night New Orleans has ever had. So as I continue with the 50-year anniversary celebration, where my goal here is to give back to you, to let you in on some of the things that have happened in my life and my career, to give you a little more background into this person that you've been listening to for a very long time. And for those of you who are brand new, I'm Scoot. I'm a talk show host in New Orleans. I have been all over the country. And this is my home, New Orleans. And I love what I do. And I do social media here, and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. It's all Scoot on the Air. And then my show's on WWL Radio in New Orleans. And you can download the app Odyssey, AUDACY, and type in WWL. And my show's on Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 Central Time in the afternoon. So I said I was going to talk about the First Amendment. And very early in my career, I took the First Amendment really to the limit. This was in the early to mid-'70s. And this was long before shock radio. I had no blueprint. I told you I was put on in the morning because nobody listened to FM radio in the morning. A lot of cars didn't have FM radios. I mean, nobody was listening. There was no audience there. And so they put me on in the morning because I was so inexperienced. So with no blueprint, no guidance, I started doing a show. And it really took off. And one of the things that I did was I kind of pushed the envelope a little bit. And back in those days, this was pushing the envelope. This is New Orleans Magazine. And there was an article written about Keith Rush, and this was a guy who was a big talk show host in New Orleans on WSMB. And inside this article, there is also a sub-article about how FM radio is going to be big, and it featured Captain Humble and myself. But one of the things apparently that got Keith Rush's attention was some of the suggestive things that I was saying on the air. Suggestive things, like it was inappropriate for me to be saying these things on the air. And we got into a battle. He would criticize me on his show in the afternoon. I would criticize him and defend myself the next morning on my morning show on 2 different radio stations in New Orleans. So there was this crosstown, battle going on. And This is one of the things that he was upset with. Things like this. Dolly Parton was arrested in Nashville last night. Police say it was the biggest bust in decades. Really? That's the kind of shit that people got upset with. And I remember Policewoman was a popular TV series in the 70s. And Angie Dickinson had really big tits. And she played Policewoman. And I might say something like, last night on Policewoman, when Angie Dickinson made an arrest, she pulled out a pair of 38s. Really? Really? But back then, people thought that was very inappropriate. And then, you know, I had the girl Tammy call from the bathtub, and then that was fun. So, you know, in the context of those times, I really pushed the limits of talk radio, because it's a lot different. It's a lot different now. Well, actually, I was on music radio then, but I did do a lot of talking. There was something that I did. You know, I tended to be kind of an activist in talk radio when I was on the air in Portland, Oregon. And there was a case where a high school student was expelled from school, not suspended. He was expelled from school because during track practice, he dropped his shorts down partway and he mooned a teammate across the field. Oh my God, sexual harassment. He pulled his pants down. We're going to expel the guy. Man, I got on the air and I said, this is bullshit. Well, I mean, I didn't say bullshit on the air, but I said, you know, this is bullshit. This guy's expelled for this. First of all, it's not illegal to show your ass. Mooning is not technically illegal. I guess it is in some cities, but for the most part, that's not a sex organ. I'm not suggesting that you go show your ass everywhere, but it wasn't even illegal. And I just thought the school was way too harsh. So on my radio show that morning in Portland, I organized what I called the Moon Militia. And I was going to be in the lead car. And if anybody wanted to follow me, they could follow me. And we were going to, in this parade of cars, the Moon Militia, we were going to moon the school at noon, the high school at noon. Well, as it turned out, the student body turned out. They heard about it. They were there outside the bleachers watching us go by. And I don't know, there might have been, 10 cars. It wasn't that it was that many, but, we all bared our asses. We mooned them. We mooned the frickin' school. And there was even it was either police or media helicopter flying over the event, covering the whole thing. There was a staging area at a service station not far away, and the Portland police begged with me not to do it. And I said, look, man, I made this promise on the air. I gotta follow through. So I did it. And students were cheering. Students were cheering our bare asses as we went by. But look, here's the great thing that happened. I brought so much attention to it. The student was let back in school. They let him back in school, and he could finish school. It was his senior year, I think. So that worked. In an episode coming up, I'll tell you about Ilian Gonzalez, and I mentioned this on my radio show today, but also when I was in Portland, remember the Ilian Gonzalez story? The 5-year-old boy, this Cuban boy who, with his mother and others, was on this makeshift raft, and the mother died, and the boy was found in high waves off Fort Lauderdale. He was alive. They found him, and his mother had died, and he was staying with an aunt in Miami. And the father, who was back in Cuba, wanted his son back. And it was a big controversy over whether or not the father had the rights to his son. And I argued for father's rights, that even though the father was in a communist country, he had a right to his son. And I know it was a tough situation. Anyway, I'll tell you what I did about that. But yeah, that was really quite a big controversy. And then let's see. Also in the next episode, I tell you what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to do it live from the backstage area at Generations Hall right before 80s night. And, I've got a few costumes that I'm going to wear, and I'm going to recreate some of the dances that I did for the 80s night from my apartment during the pandemic when all that started, which is what really associated me with the 80s. I mean, it was a big part of my career when I was in music radio. And it was like, morning music radio and the music of the 80s. It's like this, everything came together at this nexus point in time. And it was just a real high peak in radio, and I happened to be on the air and hit and was doing the right stuff on the air at this peak, and so it was a pretty big deal. It was fun, it was crazy, and yeah, I'm lucky to be alive. So I'll also tell the story, and I've told it before, but if you've missed it, it's a funny story. Backstage with the Rolling Stones in New Orleans in the Superdome. So I'll tell you that story from the backstage area at Generations Hall right before 80s night tomorrow night. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you will subscribe to Scoot on the Air YouTube, and we'll give you an alert every time we do something live, and you can check it out then or check it out later. A couple of other pictures, Kevin Griffin, man, I Better Than Ezra. Love those guys, really supported them in the beginning of their career. I did something called the Crew of Underwear, and I talked to you about this in a previous episode, but here's an actual picture of me and others in the Crew of Underwear. Now, there were some women who wore Teddy-like stuff, but as you can see, this was really about just having fun. It was really more about being stupid than it was about being sexy. I had a number of pie-in-the-face bets I had a running bet with these guys, Ross and Wilson. And then later, Steve McCoy. This was at a radio station, Z93 in Atlanta. And I would fly to Atlanta when the Saints played there, and they would fly here when the Falcons played in New Orleans. And this was the outcome in most of the situations. The Saints lost in most of the situations. I got the pie in the face countless times. But then there was this one time in Atlanta when the Saints won, and I put a pie in the face of Steve McCoy. And what we would do is we would promote the event, and it was like at the Marriott Hotel or wherever after, and some fans who were in the area would come by. Let's see, I loved playing tennis. I really, busted up my knee and everything, but I loved tennis. I still do. But I was a very avid tennis player. This is a celebrity match. I'm playing doubles with John McEnroe. Now, look, I'm not on his level. It was a celebrity match, but it was with John McEnroe, and this was in the Superdome in New Orleans. And I also played with Jimmy Connors, just an exhibition, just a fun match. And also got to know Bjorn Borg. I was the announcer for the New Orleans Nets, which was the professional tennis team of World Team Tennis. And you know who was on that team? Renee Richards. Does that name sound familiar? Renee Richards. She was the transsexual. She was a man. She was a transsexual who played as a woman in World Team Tennis. So needless to say, that was controversial. So was this. Back in the 70s, there was this women's liberation movement and this fight for the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment for Women. It never did pass. And it should have. We're still battling the problem with gender bias when it comes to salaries and pay today. But there was a Mr. ERA pageant. That's me in the Mr. ERA pageant. You don't need to see any more of that. I remember the very first time I was in a limousine, and that's Joe Bonamolo, who was with Bonamolo Limousines, which is still in business, and Joe still owns the business here in New Orleans. So, he's doing really well. And then somebody that I work with on a lot of different things was Captain Humble. He was on Air Talent, and he was crazy. And Captain Humble actually gave me my nickname, Scoot. He just called me Scoot one day, and I said, one syllable, one word, it's marketable. I'm going with it. We obviously had just judged an event, and we are kissing the winner of the event. And there were many of those. Anyway, thank you for joining me here on the Scoot on the Air YouTube channel. And again, please subscribe if you haven't. And I'll do something brief backstage right before 80s night tomorrow night. And by the way, I want to again thank Go Tax Resolution, everybody, Byron, Betsy, Crystal, Jules, everybody with Go Tax Resolution. They're one of my sponsors on my radio show, and they resolve your tax problems. And they are one of the big sponsors. They are the big sponsor of 80s night at Generations Hall. And they're going to be there too. And you're going to actually see accountants party down. And these are former IRS agents, and they know how to dance. Thank you for joining me here on the Scoot on the Air YouTube channel.